Well, I want to start here because it's important that if I don't know how many of you use N3FJP, but this is the first thing that starts up, and you need to make sure that everything is correct in here, your call, country, continent, latitude, longitude. You don't have to have it out as far as I've got it. 0.1 is fine. Down here where it says required for ARRL RTTY Roundup, you need to put your state in when you're doing the RTTY contest. The other thing down here is optional, is you can put your call sign in again as the operator. If you've got multiple operators, obviously it's just me, so it doesn't really matter. And the other thing is down here on the bottom, this you can click or unclick this. I have mine set up so that every program comes up and it always goes to the common field so that I can check it before I start it. Once you've checked it out, just get out of it. And you'll see here that I'm also using the band plan on the right and down below. We'll talk about that in a second. The colors here aren't going to match your colors because my colors are custom made for what I'm using. I changed them all. The first thing we should start here is with the file. And I got to put glasses on because I can't read the screen. The first thing we want to do, if we've used this contest before, is come in here to new and come over here and start a new contest. And when you do that, you're going to save it like this. And if there had been anything here, it would have wiped it out and disappeared it. If you wanted to save that stuff there, you would have had to change the file name. I'm going to go back to that just for a second because I kind of zoomed through it a little bit quick. Here you see my log file. This is where it actually goes. And this is the one that I did the first part of January 2021, and I just named it 2021 RTTY. I just changed the name by clicking on it and going down here to rename, and I renamed it, and then I'm done. I get out of that, and then I want to save the log. I save this log. It says it already exists. Do you want to replace it? You just say yes, because if there had been something up here, you want to wipe it out. So we're good to go here. The next thing that we want to talk about here is we don't need to get into any of this stuff other than at this point in time would be download county file or country files from AD1C. Go ahead and do that. That'll come up and you just click OK and it'll come back and tell you that it's all good to go. Apparently it was already there. If there's anything somebody wants to ask me about, go ahead and ask me because I'm trying to get through this fairly quick. Setup, if you click on setup, you're going to get that common field screen again. So if you need to change something, that's how you get there. And click out of that. Next thing is appearance. That's something to play around with, to change the colors and your sizes and so forth. DX spotting, that's for setting up for doing your spotting. If you're doing assisted, then you want to do this. If you're not doing assisted, you can leave it alone. And then here's the big one right here, rig interface. This is very important. You need to set up your radio so that the software and your radio are talking to one another. And depending on the type of radio you're using and the settings on your radio, This can be rather frustrating, or it can go fairly quickly. It kind of depends on how much you played around with N3FJP. One of the things you do with the 7300, 94 is not the default. So you always got to change the number in here in the command, read frequency and command read mode. Change them both to 94. I think they come with 96 or 98. Once you got those in there and you've got everything working well, just hit test. And if you've picked the right COM port, like here, it'll come up with the exact frequency the radio is set to and the mode that it's in. And these settings vary depending on how you have your rig set up. I'm using the CVI cable for my 7300 to operate the logging software. And once you get this done, you just click done. And the next thing you want to look at here would be the super partial checklist. Click on that, the screen's going to come up, and you want to download that. And it'll come back and say it's there. Go okay and go done. Because if you're typing a call sign in, it'll bring up stuff that'll help you. The next thing you want to do is, if you're doing the contest like the club does, you want to go to web upload contest status. You want to come over here and go to other online scoring sites. Click on that. And normally, if you just click on this first one here, it populates to all of them. So you just enable that, come down here to the bottom, make sure everything looks the way you want it to look. And when you get that, you just click done. And then if you go to contest online, you'll see your call sign if you got the right contest selected in red on the contest. The last thing that you need to be concerned about here is the application program interface. This is also very important. If you don't do this, the other software that we're going to get into in a bit here will not function. So you click on this and you go over here to the TCP API and just click on that here and forget about the rest of this. And this will allow any other software operating in conjunction with this contest log to interface with it. Click done when you've done that. Now, I don't think there's anything more that you need to know about N3FJP here as far as this contest goes. Probably the last thing I could say would be check the contest log, the version. The current one right now is 3.9. It's up here on the top, but it might, Scott Davis might update it between now and January 1st. So I always check. And if you've got this one here now, if he did an update, he's got automatic setup. So if there's a newer version out, it will automatically come up and tell me there's a new version. But if you've got an older version here, it's not going to tell you that. That's just something you learn with using the N3FJP software.
One thing for those that may not know this software, they can see in the upper left-hand corner, it's going to show you your contacts, multipliers, and score. And it'll give you the QSOs in the last 20 minutes, an hour. And then in the lower right, these are all the multipliers. And so you can keep track. It will, when you get a multiplier, it will change color.
Yes, it will change to black or blue or whatever color you have it set up for. And at a glance, you can tell where you're at. Likewise, you can look right here on total multipliers, and it'll tell you how many you got. And that's all of these right here, which is, I think, 84 plus whatever DX multipliers you get. So you can have more than 84. Down here, this little window here, this is your report that you're going to give somebody. When they ask for information, you're going to give them your call sign, your signal report, and your state location. But we're going to have all this set up automatically with N7YG digital engine. And it seems to work pretty well. It's still got some quirks in it, but it for the most part, it works. And you can start and stop your time right here. But keep in mind, as with all contests, some of them have penalties, and this particular contest, you have to be offline for a minimum of 30 minutes before you can come back on if you go off. And it's always important to read the rules of the contest you're working for to make sure you have all your settings right. So with that, I guess I'm gonna switch over here to my other screen. This is really two screens here, but they come up when you load this one up, they pop up, and this is the N7YG digital engine. This does more than just RTTY, but I've only have it set up and use it for RTTY. And it took me a while to get it figured out. Now, it's similar in some sets. If you're doing FT8, you should be able to navigate through this fairly easy. If you're not doing WSJT FT8, then you might have difficulty. But if you're using that software, this is pretty much similar. File, there's nothing really here to worry about at this point in time. Configure is the first place you're going to start. And you start with the sound. This is very important here because it will not work unless you have the codecs files in here so that your radio is talking to this software and likewise the computer. They all got to be working together. In my case, on the N3FJP, I'm using COM3. And on this software, I'm using COM4. And so I'm using the CVI cable with the N3FJP, and I'm using the printer USB cable to drive this software. For the most part, the settings that you see here are factory defaults, other than I think I put COM4 in here and I clicked on RTS and DTR. These settings are standard, and once you get them in there, just hit accept. Then the next thing you want to look at in config is N3FJP, because that's what you're using. And this is what this program is really designed to use. You want to look at this screen here, make sure it says localhost, you got the 1100 server port, and these are the basic settings that you want to click on. These three here, this one over here, and these here. You can play around with it and you'll find that sometimes things won't function right if you don't have them selected or you don't need them. It's a personal thing on some of them. Once you get that, there's really, personal. Yeah, that one's important too. Click on that one, put your call sign in, your name, your QTH, your county, your grid square. You can put the DEK7 if you want, CW, and your email address. This is all the other information that's important to do. And then just click out of that once you've got it in there. The default, you don't need to worry about that at this point in time. This one here, show macro menu. you can click this or unclick it. If I unclick it, you see it disappeared up here on the top bar. If I come back in and click on it, it puts the macro button here. Now this macro button, if you click on it, it just tells you the F buttons that and what you have them set up for. I don't use this. I'm just showing it here for your own information. What I use is down here. The macros are down here. And we'll get to that in a little bit. Now, this logger section, this kind of tells you whether your system is working right or not. If you click N3FJP here, you'll see the contests that we're using popped up here right away. So that tells you that we're linked to the N3FJP RTTY Roundup logging software that's on my other screen that you're not seeing. The other thing that happened is these two buttons, chat and log, or clear and log, showed up. They weren't there before. Just the kill button was there. Okay, and the other thing you'll notice, this radio control is grayed out. To get that to come back, go back to logger and get out of, just double click on that. And now radio control works. Now, this is where it gets a little bit sticky. The configure button is you do the rig setup here. And I'll tell you right offhand, I've never gotten this setup to properly function. I go down here to RTTY and I click on RTTY and it shows you some bands. Over here, you can click on band buttons and you can highlight the band buttons you want to show on your display. And when you're done here, you just get out of it. Now, then you go back here to radio control again. If you hit enable, you'll see that this line of buttons just showed up here, the band buttons and so forth. Well, I don't have them shown because I haven't been able to figure out how to get the software to work with the radio here. This is the only thing I've never gotten to function properly. So I usually just go up here to radio and hide rig control bar. Okay, and it drops it out. And I come back here to N3FJP and everything is working the way it should. And I get rid of that. So now we have the software up and running to log contacts. Now, to change your macros or build macros, just click on any one of these buttons with the right mouse. And here your screen comes up and it says I'm on his call label, which was his call right here. I clicked on this one. Now, if I click on my call too, I have to go, okay, get out of here and come back in on whichever button. Oops, didn't want to do that. Right click, there's my call. And you can use these abbreviations here, cut and paste this stuff in to create your macros. And then you got all these macro banks here for different contests. And you put them over here once you fill them in here, and you can click on, when you get out of this, you can come over here and click and pick the one you want. And these are all my run stuff here. And I use the top one for run, and I have it in running general, and I have search and pounce general. So I'm more of a search and pounce guy. So I'm usually just using these buttons down here. Now, if I want to call CQ, I can click here. I've got my radio on and I'm just gonna dial the power down here. Okay, and I'll transmit CQ. And you can see it's going CQ and it's giving my call sign twice. Now, if I was somebody else and you saw them up there, all you do is come up here, left click in the screen here, and you'll have this stuff pull up, and just go up to the call sign, click on it, and my call sign came up like that was the person calling me. And I just go send to call. Okay, now I put my call sign up there, and I'm gonna switch screens here for a second. Okay, now if you notice, when I clicked on that, over here on N3FJP, it put the call sign in, put the signal reports, the defaults in, and the only thing it needs is me to put the state in. So that's the only thing I gotta do, is I gotta come over here and click Washington State, and or whatever state that individual's in. And then I can click enter by hitting enter on my keyboard, or I can go back over here to the log on N3FJP, which are on N7YG, which I'm going to hit the log button over on this other screen. And you can see it just put it up there on the top. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. The hardest part about using this thing is building your macros for what you want. And down here, the waterfall, you can, now down here with your mouse, you can click on your mouse and drag and see this little bar down here. You can scan, you can drop it wherever there's a signal on there, a dual trace for RTTY, drop it there and it will decode that signal. And it works pretty good. The settings that I got here are pretty much default, but your radio on your 7300, you do not put it in RTTY. You're in RTTY upper sideband in this software. So on your radio, make sure your radio is set to USB upper sideband digital. And don't use the RTTY, use the digital, and it will talk here with the setup pretty easy. And that's pretty much it. It's kind of an experiment and play with, but this should help you get into it a little bit quicker than struggling like I did for 2 weeks trying to figure out how to get this thing to work.